And we are live, everybody. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, October 25th. I'm Josh Engleman. I've been here all week. You guys have seen two different people do this show with me over the course of the first week of the NBA season. And now you got a third. Matt Belman in the house. We're breaking down 10 games. We're going to have some fun. Let's do it. Belman, what's up, man?
Nothing, bro. Been a minute since we've done a show. Hyped to get on here and talk some Friday night hoops with you. Doing the Friday night strategy show is always fun. Always got a bunch of games, and no exception tonight. We got 10 of them.
Oh man, I'm pumped for it. I really am. Decent enough games tonight.
It's so early to know, you know?
Yeah. Indy, New York's fun. Memphis, Houston's fun. Phoenix and the Lakers, it's fun. A little bit less fun than some of these other spots. Charlotte, Atlanta is fun for
Us.
What are these two teams going to be?
I feel like that's just a fun game for DFS purposes, potentially.
I don't think the first game that we'll talk about is all that fun. Brooklyn and Orlando. I would imagine Orlando meets very little resistance with this Brooklyn Nets team, but what do I know? How's the NBA season treating you so far?
It's been pretty good. I've actually been doing more multi-entry stuff using the Sims. The first night of the season, I was in that second place train.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, which sucks, but at least I wasn't the only one crying.
Yeah.
So is what it is. And then been pretty decent. The Sims are obviously doing good work. So, living and learning and trying to get better with the process each day. How about yourself?
Betting wise has been great. DFS has been a mixed bag so far. Bob Carrington got me pretty bad. I really wish he didn't get named the starter. Yeah, I wish he didn't get named the starter. I wouldn't have had as much. But what are you going to do? All right, we got 10 games to get to. Lots to talk about, including the Tip-Off 24 promo, which I know you guys have been loving. And it's looked like it's been going pretty good for everybody based on all the screenshots we've been getting. But for now, we're going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets and the Orlando Magic. Nets are 11.5-point dogs in Orlando. 215.5 total is the lowest total on today's slate. Both of these teams are pretty slow, and Orlando obviously leaning heavy into the defense. Basically no ownership coming into the Brooklyn side. Highest owned guy on the Nets is 4% for Dorian Finney-Smith, Jalen Wilson, and Ben Simmons. A little bit more coming in on FanDuel. Ben Simmons is 10%. Cam Johnson is 7%. Are you seeing anything from the Brooklyn Nets that's catching your eye?
No, not even a little bit. In my top 150, I'm getting like 2% Jalen Wilson and 1% Cam Johnson and Ben Simmons. So I don't see anything here. Tough matchup. Not a good team, obviously. Still don't really know how Brooklyn is going to allocate their usage, etc. So I'm not interested here. How about you? Anything?
I'm quite confident they're going to allocate it like this. 100% Cam Thomas, 0% everyone else on the team. I have very little interest here. I got to 10% of Cam Johnson on FanDuel. He's small forward, power forward eligible, 5,400, 7% owned. So like right around the field. Other than that, there's nothing here. They are probably like the least appealing team that exists on this slate, given their matchup, given the total in this game, given the people that are on the Brooklyn Nets. I don't really have anybody that I'm just like, I think you guys should take an extra special look at them. I don't see it.
Yeah, even against Atlanta the other night, they weren't really appealing. So in a much tougher spot here, I don't see it at all. Even Orlando themselves doesn't look great. They look significantly better than Brooklyn, though.
Oh, by the way, I don't think I said this at the beginning. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. You can see our handles on the screen right now. But hit that like button. We want to try to get this somewhere in the ballpark of 500 likes before we turn this one over to the Live Before Lock crew. Orlando Magic, 17% ownership to Paolo Banchero on DK, 16 on FanDuel, 26% ownership coming into Jalen Suggs on DraftKings, 11 on FanDuel. Nobody else made it to double digits across either site. Let's just start with Paolo in general. How are you feeling about him here? Because pretty good spot against Brooklyn.
It's a really good spot against Brooklyn. He's expensive, though. So
yeah,
as much as I don't like this, I'm not getting hardly any Paolo. It's just a price thing, and the ownership's there. Like, I think that you saw a ceiling game on night one. Now, it doesn't mean that that's definitely true, and he might just be that guy going forward, but the ownership, the price, I'm only getting like 3.5% right now. Maybe that changes as the show goes on, but right now I'm not getting to him in favor of some other guys. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's kind of the same. I have 8% right now on FanDuel. He's 16% owned there. He does have an MPE on FanDuel, so he's a little bit more rosterable there. A little bit more expensive, but does pick up the extra position. I just don't have all that much. I don't really have any KCP. I don't really have any Suggs, which I guess is the next talking point. Chalk Suggs on DraftKings today. Do you see it that same way?
Yeah, unfortunately I do. I'm definitely getting to a lot of Suggs here. I don't care too much about the ownership because I'm getting much more of guys that aren't getting love. So like, my lineup construction as a whole is not going to be anything to worry about as far as that goes. I'm getting like 1.5 the field on Suggs. I think it's just a really good price point. Great matchup. We saw Paolo just drop his nutsack on the Heat in game one, and it was pretty much just his show.
Yeah.
I could see this being a more spread out like type night tonight. Suggs can get there in so many ways against a team like Brooklyn that's sloppy, turns the ball over. So again, this isn't like I think he's the best play on the slate or anything. He's just cheap and makes lineup construction work. That said, like, I don't like him nor have nearly as much of him as I do Dyson Daniels.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, Suggs looks good. Like 4,800 is just too cheap for the starting point guard of Orlando against Brooklyn. So I totally understand why the love's coming in. I think he's a little overowned, but nothing too crazy. He's clearly one of the better plays you can find today. I don't have much else for Orlando unless you do.
I do not. I'm trying to even see if I'm getting to anyone else. I don't really think so. So no.
Yeah, I have one share of KCP. And as always, I do this on basically every show. I'm going to reiterate it again. If you're a starter in the NBA, if you're someone playing like 26, 28, upwards of 30 minutes or over that, you're permanently in play. Like there's no no's in the NBA. You want to play Franz Wagner tonight, even though we didn't talk about him. Like, yeah, that's fine. He's going to be a couple percentage points owned. But if we tried to talk about everybody that's 4% owned, the show would be 6 hours long. So sometimes you just have to trim the fat a little bit.
Yeah, we can't talk about everyone. That said, I am getting to more Wagner and Wendell Carter than Paolo. I'm not getting to a lot of either of them, but it kind of plays into what I'm thinking, that it's more of a spread out night here. I just don't think they're going to need Paolo to be they didn't need him the other night, but I just think, again, they've got a bunch of talented guys on this team, and while I think it's a lot of nights going to be Paolo, I think other nights it's going to be spread out, and I think tonight that's kind of how I'm playing it.
Okay. The Philadelphia 76ers are 5-point favorites in Toronto, 219 total. This is the third lowest total on today's slate. Sixers still without Paul George and Joel Embiid. Probably a little bit of up in the air question marks regarding their starting lineup. They started KJ Martin in the opener. He made it 1/2 and then lost that job to Caleb Martin. I'm kind of feeling like Caleb Martin is going to be starting in his place and they're not going to do that shit again. There's a ton of ownership, though, coming into Philly. Maxi's 10% across both sites. Kelly Oubre is 20 on DraftKings and 40 on FanDuel. Caleb Martin's 20 across both sites. Andre Drummond is like 15 on both sites. Yabusele is still getting some love on DraftKings, even with the $1,000 price bump. So I'm just going to open it up to you. I'm assuming you like something on Philly.
I do, and it's coming in exactly how I like it too, which is always nice to see. I'm lower on everyone on Philly except for Drummond, who I'm way higher on.
Okay.
I think this is just a much better spot than he saw in game one. And I like the other Philly guys. I'm getting there. I think they're all just getting a ton of ownership, and some of it is a little bit exaggerated in my mind. Like that said, I like Drummond a ton. I'm getting almost double the field of Drummond. I'm not getting, like, Oubre's 21% owned. I'm getting 15% Oubre. I'm getting a little bit over the field on Maxey, but nothing crazy. I'm getting 15% Maxey. So spread out with Drummond being my main focus. How about you?
So a little bit different on FanDuel for me. I'm not playing DraftKings today, just FanDuel. 44% owned Kelly Oubre is in 36% of my lineups. I hate it. I hate it so much. I wish that I were fading him. It's what I'd want to do on the surface, but I'm still getting in and around the field. Shooting guard, small forward, 6,200. Like, he just does work really well. We were doing a little bit of a projections call earlier today. I don't think I still have it up. I don't. Like, off the top of my head, Kelly Oubre and Maxey playing in the same game with Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid off the floor. Oubre has like a 26% usage rate, but he shot like 24% from three or something really like extraordinarily terrible. I'm just nervous that he's like a little bit out of his depth for what they need from him here today. And I would rather like cheer for his failure than have to cross my fingers for his success. But apparently I'm going to be crossing my fingers for his success. I don't have a single share of Caleb Martin right now at the 22% ownership that he's pulling on FanDuel. And I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to be getting there. He doesn't really project all that well for me. He is $5,300 on FanDuel. That's $400 more expensive than he is on DraftKings. So I am not the biggest believer in Caleb Martin on FanDuel. Maybe that changes a little bit and I give him a little bit of a bump if we get some news over the next hour and a half. And, you know, that extra half point or point gets him into my stuff. Only other guy I'm getting to is your boy, Andre Drummond. I don't have a ton. FanDuel a little bit different. You only roster one center. So, you know, the dynamic is a little bit harder. Your aggregate ownership is going to be lower on centers than it is for guys on DraftKings. I have 8% of Drummond right now, which to me isn't bad. I mean, there's only so much that I could do at center. So I'm happy to have at least a little bit of him.
Yeah, it's just such a different dynamic, as you were saying, with only being able to roster one guy. So I'm with you. Doesn't seem like we see it that much different.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like here. This should be a competitive game. I like pieces from both sides.
Keep your eyes peeled on the starting lineup for the Sixers, guys. The live before lock crew will get that one around 6:30. So just in case they do anything weird there. Toronto, lots of ownership coming in here. 13% to Barnes on DraftKings, 25 on FanDuel, around 15 for Grady Dick on both sites, 20 to 30 on Jake Puddle on DK and FanDuel, and around 10 for Agbaji and Davion Mitchell on the FanDuel side. Let's start with Scotty Barnes. I had a lot of him on opening night. Evan Mobley ruined his life. I am going right back to him today. I have 41%. He's 26% owned on FanDuel. Do you like Scotty Barnes?
I hate to one-up you, but I have 52% on DraftKings. He's one of my highest owned players on the slate. I was also all over him on opening night, and man, I just, you know, and Mobley was just awesome. And I expect a lot of Mobley games like that this year with Atkinson now the head coach. That was all they kept saying all summer was like Atkinson was brought here for Mobley. They didn't change anything on their roster. So that's for another slate. But yeah, I love Scotty Barnes here. He looks really good. I mean, this is just such a better spot for Toronto than it was against Cleveland, who is just really good, better than Philly right now when Philly's not healthy. It's clearly much better inside without Embiid. So I like Barnes a lot. I like Pirtle a lot. I'm getting to a ton of Pirtle, a ton of Barnes. I'm way under on Grady Dick, and I'm way over on the bigs.
Not getting a lot of Dick today.
No, not in any sense.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. I join you on your love for Jake Puddle. 5,900 on FanDuel. He is helping to limit me getting to Andre Drummond. He is 32% owned, and he is in 33% of my lineup. So it is Jake Puddle season for me, at least a little bit. Hopefully he looks a little bit better than he did in the opener. And then I'm getting a lot of Davion Mitchell. I have 23%. I could understand why that's probably not on your radar. He is 5,300 on DraftKings and 4,200 on FanDuel. So a very different human being with no Emmanuel Quickly here today.
Plus, he's like better for FanDuel scoring anyways. So just a better.
Oh, absolutely. Defensive stat boost there, which is his entire jam. And then I have a little bit of Ochai Agbaji as well, 4,100 shooting guard only. He is power forward only on DraftKings.
So, I actually
that right there. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You got it.
I have the same amount of Agbaji as I do Dick on DraftKings, 4% of each.
Okay. Ochai Agbaji is the perfect guy for me to explain why I don't pay attention to DVP. If you're thinking about DVP and you're using Ochai Agbaji as like the guy you want to think of, what position are you treating Ochai Agbaji as in this case? Are you treating him as a shooting guard like on FanDuel, a power forward like on DraftKings? Do you split the difference and call him a small forward? That's why this gets complicated. You have no idea how the other people are assigning positions to aggregate those stats.
It's such a good point.
The positions that we're looking at right now are randomized. So when you're thinking about this kind of stuff, if you want to think about like, okay, big men against a team, that's a different sort of lens that you could look at it. Point guard type people, that's a lens you could look at. That middle ground is sort of all one big bucket. And you don't want to get granular on like, oh, shooting guard versus small forward, because positionality is really weird like that. Okay, rant over. I don't have anything else for Toronto.
We talked I have a little bit of Chris Boucher also. That's the only other guy I'll mention.
Okay, 3,900 on DraftKings, power forward only. He's unplayable on FanDuel. He's 4,700 there, so not really a talking point. But 3,900, I don't mind that at all. He seems to be a part of the rotation.
Yeah, we know he can get there. Still no RJ Barrett, so that doesn't hurt him. You know, I mean, they don't play the same position, but just another body that's not there.
All right. All right, 2 games down. Schedule for the rest of the night. Very simple. 1. In order to hear the schedule, you got to hit the like button on this video. NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next. You'll get Eric and Greg, I assume, taking you all the way up until 7 o'clock. Then Greg and I are going to hop over to Playback. We're already there now. You could watch there if you wanted to, but we're going to hop on over to Playback. We're going to watch probably the beginning of Philly and Toronto, assuming that is a League Pass game. We'll watch that for about a half hour. Probably flip that one over to Indy and New York, assuming that's a League Pass game. And we'll just hang out, watch the games, talk about bets, talk about DFS. At 8 o'clock, Greg and I are going to get out of there. It's not over yet. Aton is hopping on with some other guys from Tails, and they're going to hang out and talk some basketball and watch some games for some sort of amount of time after that. So tons of coverage for Friday night. If you're a dork like the rest of us and you're sitting here watching this on a Friday and you're going to watch some basketball, there's no reason you shouldn't hang around with the rest of us on Playback.
Amen.
Who has plans on a Friday night when it's the first week of the NBA season, you know?
Yeah.
Why would you want to go out and have fun on a Friday when you could watch Brooklyn lose to Orlando?
Preach.
Oof. Charlotte Hornets, 5.5 point dogs in Atlanta, 226 total. Lots of ownership here coming in on the Charlotte side. They are also quite walking wounded. Mark Williams is out for who the hell knows how long. He's been out for what seems like forever. Josh Green is questionable. But the big one, the one that matters most, Brandon Miller got injured in their opener. He's going to be out for this one. So lots of usage to be redistributed. These guys are basically only owned on DraftKings. The highest owned guy on FanDuel is LaMelo Ball at 7%. The disparity here is that he is 9,300 on DraftKings and 23% owned. Trey Mann is 20% owned, and Cody Martin is 15% owned. How are you seeing Charlotte here? Interesting matchup for them against Atlanta.
Yeah, I like Charlotte. I was on LaMelo on the opening night also, and he was good. I'm over the field. I'm over the field on Charlotte, to be quite honest, on basically everyone. The big three, Cody Martin, LaMelo. And, man, I've agreed with everything that I've gotten so far. This is the first one where I really question it, so I've been wanting to get your opinion on this. I'm currently getting like 45% Trey Mann. I do not like that at all. Talk me into it.
He looks great. As a point per dollar play, the fact that he's 4,300, he is wildly underpriced. Like, he's 5,400 on FanDuel. He's mostly off the table there. Yeah. I think the Josh Green news is going to be pretty important. If Josh Green is out, I'd feel pretty comfortable having a ton of man. If Josh Green is in, then you just sort of muck up the water a little bit in terms of like guys that can get minutes, the potential ceiling minutes type games for somebody like Trey Mann. I'd be a little bit more nervous if we officially get Josh Green in, but I do like him. And apparently Charlotte likes him a lot too. And he has had some significant usage over the past few weeks through preseason. So
he shoots.
I'm a fan. I like it. But
I think that's a good call about Josh Green.
There's definitely going to be apprehension if they have another like guard type guy that can go.
especially because he's getting ownership. Like, and he's not like cheap. He's not expensive, but like he's, you need him to be actually good here. So
yeah,
worried that was a 1-game mirage and jumping on like with the field after 1 game seems silly, but there's also a lot of buying signs. So this is the tricky part of early season NBA.
I think he looks incredible on DraftKings at that price tag. And even if Josh Green's out, like he's going to be pulling a chunk of ownership, and I think he should.
You mean even if Josh Green's in?
If I said the opposite of that, then yes.
Okay.
Yes. If Josh Green is in, I still like Trey Mann. But if Josh Green is out, then like you don't really have to feel too worried about his playing time, I don't think.
Sweet.
I don't have anything else here for Charlotte. I have 10% of LaMelo, but these guys just don't look good on the FanDuel side. So
I was a little surprised. I wasn't getting more Nick Richards, but I just think the center position is too good.
It's a different situation than what we were getting in that opener.
Yep.
Atlanta side, Hawks are going to be without Bogdan Bogdanović for this one. They got a couple other injuries, but nothing that matters for this. Around 10% ownership coming into Trae Young. Around 10% for Jalen Johnson on DK. 30 on FanDuel. And then we get to the true chalk play of today. 4,600 on DraftKings, 5,200 on FanDuel. That's going to be Dyson Daniels. He's 35% owned on FanDuel. 47 on DK. And we're getting another 20 going to DeAndre Hunter on DraftKings and 12 to Clint Capella on FanDuel. Floor is yours. I know you're going to talk about Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, I'm actually over on everyone on Atlanta except for Trae Young, which is weird, but it is what it is. Significantly over on Hunter. Jalen Johnson, I'm getting 22% of. And then Daniels. I was on him on opening night, and I just think this is a new role for him that he's never been in before. Obviously, there's no DeJounte Murray, and now with Bogdanović out in a matchup like this, I just think he's too cheap for the minutes he's going to have. He's not a great offensive player, but I think more is needed of him here than was ever asked in New Orleans. Great defender, so he's going to play a ton, and he's going to get defensive stats. So I just think he's too cheap. I have a lot more confidence in him than someone like Trey Mann, personally.
I think he looks great. The price is too low for the role that he has now on Atlanta. His price is just an archive of him being on the Pelicans and being limited. Like he's not going to be he's 4,600 today. He's going to be 5,600 next week. Very easily. So like, this is just value that 100% exists from his salary standpoint. He is going to be more expensive, full stop, moving forward. Bogdan in, Bogdan out doesn't have anything to do with it. He will be more expensive. My only concern for him, and it's not like I have 46%. I'm over the field on FanDuel. It's not like I'm not getting there, even at a higher price tag. My assumption is that he's going to get LaMelo. And LaMelo has been looking a little bit more active in terms of grabbing some free throws. So I do have like a twinge of foul trouble concern for Dyson Daniels. Nothing that I think is super actionable for what we want to do here today. He's just too good of a play. But and that's going to be tough for LaMelo, too. I mean, Dyson Daniels is fantastic on the ball.
I think that's a really good point you brought up. And I'm just rapidly thinking, like, is it Daniels who I'm more worried about? Sure, a little bit, but also the big men. I mean, LaMelo can get by just about anyone, and he draws a lot of his fouls at the rim. So, yeah, I mean, certainly that's a concern, but not enough for me at this price tag.
Agreed. So I've got about 20% of Jalen Johnson. I also have about 20% of Clint Capella. You want to pay very close attention to who is announced as the starting center here. Capella started in the opener. Okongwu played significant minutes, including the closing minutes in the opener. If Capella's named the starter, I have a hard time projecting them not neutral, since Capella could, in theory, close this game. If we happen to get Onyeka Okongwu as the starter, however, that will dramatically change the way that Clint Capella looks on FanDuel. So make sure you're paying attention to that.
Well, all of a sudden, if Okongwu is starting, I think he looks really good. I mean, there's still the worry of Capella coming off, but like it's not like Capella coming. Like, no, I think that's a big buying sign for Okongwu. But
5,400 for Okongwu on DraftKings. If that happens to change, he's 6,600 on FanDuel.
Big men destroy Charlotte. You talked about like
they do.
You don't like the going by position, and I'm totally with you. But you also mentioned that like when you reference like a big men versus team, and big men always kill Charlotte, and we saw it on opening night. Sengun just was phenomenal.
So Devon just hit us with the super chat. It says, "Hey Josh, why is it that DK's projection and the Sims projection are sometimes diametrically opposite? I've been meeting some in between. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what you mean. Matt, do you have? Are you reading into that?
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what he's meaning.
I'm guessing like guys that project well, but then you don't get them in the Sims.
Read that question again.
Why is it that DK's projection and the Sims projection are sometimes diametrically opposite?
Does DK DFS have projections?
I can't imagine that's what he means.
Same.
If he does, then player projection. Do you mean like DK of DK DFS?
Or does he mean like the DraftKings, how much they're averaging per game? It could be, you know what I mean? Like DraftKings
themselves. If it's that, then ignore whatever you see on DraftKings.
Because like DraftKings themselves doesn't do projections.
Yeah, if it's the DraftKings projection on DraftKings itself, don't ever look at that again.
Or the last thing I think of he could mean is the projections in the projection like tool different than the projections in the Sims, and I can't imagine that to be the case.
Seems like the consensus here is DraftKings averages. If that's the case, then throw those bad boys in the garbage and only pay attention to the Sims.
Yeah. Because that's not projections.
Malakar says, what is diametric? All right, we got to pick up the pace a little bit here. There's going to be a couple of teams we don't have to talk about. This one is a key one. The Detroit Pistons, 11-point dogs in Cleveland, 226 total. Highest owned guy on the Pistons on DraftKings is 6% owned Tobias Harris. He happened to get to 12% on FanDuel. It's a terrible matchup for Detroit. Cleveland's defense is really, really good, especially when they're able to start Dean Wade at the 3 over Max Strus. The defense becomes even better. I do happen to have a giant stand on Tobias Harris on FanDuel. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't really see Detroit as a team that you want to get to, though. Cade Cunningham, always fine in tournaments.
Yeah, Detroit looks like Brooklyn to me. I mean, filler pieces. You'll get to some of them in a 150 setting, but nothing that stands out at all.
Oh, yeah, I might be a hair high on Tobias Harris. So I'm going to correct that. I'll have a little bit less. I just don't want to prioritize the Detroit Pistons against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland is really good.
Yeah, Cleveland's good. Detroit stinks, so it's just not a good spot.
Then we'll go to the Cleveland side because we do have a little bit of ownership coming in here on FanDuel. These guys are unowned on DraftKings. 4% Mitchell, 4% Garland, 4% Allen, 3% Mobley. But Garland is 20% on FanDuel and Allen is 20% on FanDuel because Garland's $700 cheaper. And then Allen has the power forward eligibility as well. I'm a little bit over the field on Darius Garland. I'm neutral to the field on Jared Allen. And this is the first spot where I'm taking a bit of a stand on a star. 7% owned Donovan Mitchell is in 26% of my lineups. There's no part of me that's mad about trying to get to Donovan Mitchell against the Pistons. He should have a great time out there with very little defensive problems. So I am pretty heavy on Cleveland. I'm guessing you aren't just because DraftKings is a little harder. Although Mitchell, 8,700 there.
I'm getting like no Cleveland, and I don't like it. And the one guy I'm going to boost and get more of is Mobley. I'm buying Mobley this year, and I think he's underpriced for who he's going to be. Now, this is a spot where they probably don't need it because Detroit stinks and they're good all over, but they didn't need it against Toronto, and he didn't even play the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
he's going to be assertive this year, and he was already a fringy, very good DFS, play, even when everyone was in because he had upside games. If he's going to be like the most assertive player for the Cavs, at least during the beginning of the regular season or for however long that Donovan Mitchell will let him be that guy, I'm buying it. So I think he's too cheap for his role. Same thing you said about Mitchell, I feel about Mobley. Cake matchup. He should dominate Detroit here. I like Mobley a ton. I'm not getting to hardly any, but I'm going to boost him, so I do.
Okay. Yeah, like I think it's just they're like not the most cost efficient in comparison to the rest of the slate, so they're getting brought down. But I think Cleveland looks really good as like the contrarian piece of a GPP lineup.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it.
Alrighty. Indiana Pacers, 4.5-point dogs in New York, 227 total. Like I said, 4.5 is the line. My recommendation, bet the Knicks. No ownership coming into the Pacers on DraftKings or FanDuel. 6% is the highest amount of anybody. It's Turner on DK. That's Tyrese Halliburton on FanDuel. I actually have 15% of Halliburton. So he's kind of playing the same sort of role here that Mitchell was playing on that previous one. A little pay up to be contrarian type guy. Other than that, I don't have anything for the Pacers. Should be a tough spot for Indiana against the Knicks. Just a ton of wing defenders to really complicate matters for the Pacers. Don't really like Indiana here. What do you think?
I have no interest in Indiana either. I mean, New York is going to be a team that on big slates like this, I'm going to hardly want pieces against them. I know Boston was incredible on opening night, but first off, that's the 2-game slate, and second of all, that's Boston, and Boston's better than everyone else.
Yeah, I just don't have anything here that's worth really chatting up. Like, clearly, always. You want to play Halliburton, Siakam, Turner. Like, I get it. I just don't see it. Knicks are pulling heavy ownership, though. 25% to Brunson on DraftKings, 25% to Towns on DraftKings, and then 10 apiece to Hart and McBride. FanDuel has Bridges, Anunoby, Towns, and Hart all around 15%, and then 25% going to Brunson. I'm well over the field on Anunoby, well over the field on Josh Hart, neutral to that 25% ownership on Brunson, and I'm still getting some Towns and Bridges. I find the Knicks to be great, not to mention giant pace up spot for the Knicks and a terrible Indiana Pacers defense.
Really, really good bounce back spot for New York here. We're seeing that kind of as the theme tonight. Getting to a lot of Brunson, a lot of Hart. I'm not getting to a lot of Towns, which I'm totally okay with. I'm getting to double the field of Anunoby, even though he's not getting a ton of ownership. Not getting to McBride tonight. So getting to the players I want to get to, Brunson and Hart. Those are the two guys I want here, and they're in really, really good spots. Everyone on the Knicks is. I think you could play 6 guys on New York here, but I'm focused on Brunson and Hart.
I love this starting 5 today against Indiana. This is one of my favorite places to get to. I'm well over the field in the aggregate. Knicks are pulling ownership, but I'm getting even more of it. And I have 15% of Towns, who's also 15% owned on FanDuel. 7,700 for Towns. I think a really good matchup here, too, against Miles Turner.
With you.
Yeah, get the Knicks, man. Get the Knicks. Not only should you get the Knicks in fantasy, and I think that you should bet the Knicks, there's one more thing you should get, and that is the NBA core package at Stokastic for $1. The promo code is TIPOFF24. If you sign up now using the link in the description of this video, it'll cost you $1. You will get it until October 29th, through October 29th. If for any reason this is not something that you like when you have it, you can cancel at any time. You will only be out $1. It's that simple. You get projections, ownership, our boom bust tool, our single lineup simulator, contest generator, our actual sims, the post contest sims. Everything you could want on the back end for the NBA will be yours for a single buck. It's a fantastic deal, guys. You guys have been crushing it so far. So thank you guys for that very much. It's been nice to see. I'm hoping that it's helping you guys out. By all accounts, what I see in the contest, it seems to be doing that. We've had a lot of guys win. Guys win 100,000 off of this dollar. So it's kind of nice to see. You guys can get it for $1 as long as you click that link and click that thumbs up button so we can try to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 by the time we turn this one over to live before lock. Memphis Grizzlies are 3.5-point dogs in Houston, 225 total. This is another spot that has very little ownership attached to it. Santi Aldama getting 9% on DK. Marcus Smart getting 8 on FanDuel. Everybody else is at basically 1. Do you like Houston? Or sorry, do you like Memphis today?
Nope, not a team I'm getting into much of at all, and I'm fine with it. When they're healthy, I know Jaren Jackson's out, but backcourt's healthy and expensive. Don't love the spot. I'm out on Memphis here for the most part.
Yeah, same. I don't see it. They got a lot of moving parts right now, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. We saw Brandon Clark be like interesting on the opening night, barely played. They went to a lot more of Jay Huff, which I certainly didn't see coming. I don't have a ton here. As always, if you want to roll the dice on the Ja Morants of the world, I wouldn't tell you not to do it, but I don't know. This one just doesn't appear to be a spot that I'm going to get to. And the Houston side really isn't much better. 9% ownership to Fred VanVleet is the high mark on DraftKings. 13 to Jabari Smith on FanDuel is the high mark there. No one else is in double digits other than Jabari on FanDuel. Do you find the Houston side better than the Memphis side?
Honestly, not really. Man, I'm not getting to like any of this game, which is kind of scary, but at the same time, I just, from a pricing perspective, just don't think it looks good. So I'm not all that surprised by it. My highest exposed player in this game is Sengun at 6%. And from the Memphis side, it's Scottie Pippen Jr. at 5%. Like, okay, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. This is probably like my least exposed game, or at least something pretty close to it.
Same. And whenever you get games like this, especially with a tight spread, like if it happens to go 10, 15 points over the total and be competitive, guys can get there. It's just the tricky part about it is like which guys, because both teams have guys. Certainly Morant is who you'd want for Memphis, because he's very expensive.
Man, I could, all I see right now in my head is this game going to overtime and us being like,
sure.
Oh, don't have it.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm getting that vibe right now. I feel like I've talked overtime games into the universe on more than one occasion. And I don't know. I've just got this feeling that this one's going to OT. Maybe I'll bet it. I wonder what the line is.
Gotta be crazy.
Yeah, not something that I'm excited to think about here. I just don't want a lot of this game. So let's cross our fingers that it doesn't go to OT. Steve Wayne says playing some Ja at 1% ownership. Yeah, I mean, look, you build a real chalky lineup and you swap out some chalky guard for Ja Morant. I love that pivot.
Yeah, same.
The Chicago Bulls are 9.5-point dogs in Milwaukee, 234 total. And we have a lot of Chicago people at the company, considering we're based there. Any Chicago people in chat? I was listening to a podcast earlier today, hearing that they don't have any like local TV rights. If you're in Chicago, the only way that you could watch it is like over the air antenna channel 66-2 or something crazy. Anybody from Chicago in here having the same problems as the Bulls? Or do you guys just not watch the Bulls because they're shit? I could see that being the thing. Anyway, 18% ownership coming into Zach LaVine on DraftKings, 17 on FanDuel. 23% ownership coming into Kobe White on FanDuel, unowned on DraftKings. And 32% coming into Josh Giddey on FanDuel at 6,100. I have even more than that. Same stance that I took 2 days ago. So I like Giddey quite a bit. I'm happy to get to LaVine. I don't have as much Kobe White. What are you doing with LaVine here? Because he looks like the best option on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm under on everyone, even LaVine. I'm getting 12% of LaVine. I'm fine with it. Better plays on FanDuel. Certainly Giddey is for sure. Cheaper, better scoring on FanDuel for him. So, yeah, I like it more on your side of things here. I'm under on Chicago. Can't play everyone type of thing, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very different equation on FanDuel. Like Kobe White's $700 cheaper there. Josh Giddey has point guard and shooting guard eligibility, so increased flexibility, and he's $500 cheaper. So I can see why he's pulling that sort of love. Tough spot for them here against Milwaukee. I mean, Chicago is one of the worst defenses in the league. They have nobody even resembling a Giannis stopper. I think they're going to get carved up pretty bad, but I'm hoping Josh Giddey can be out there long enough and this doesn't become any sort of crazy blowout, because he is going to be one of my major stands. The Milwaukee side, on the other hand, 10% ownership coming into Bobby Portis is the highest mark on DraftKings. We got a little bit more love on FanDuel, 20% to Gary Trent, 20% to Dame Lillard, 10% to Giannis, 10% to Portis. We do have Gary Trent questionable for tonight. That is very important. for some value options for the rest of Milwaukee, so keep your eyes peeled there. What are you doing with the Bucks?
That's like the one piece of injury we don't have yet, so that stinks. Again, I think it matters if Trent plays. As of now, I'm not getting to a ton of Milwaukee. It's obviously Giannis and then everyone else. And with Trent in, I don't really see it.
So I'm a little bit under on Dame, but I do have 18% of a 10% owned Giannis. I don't get the sense that you're going to have any pushback on that one.
Never will.
Nope. And then I am half the field on Gary Trent right now, and I tend to be a little bit higher on Gary Trent in this moment, and that still doesn't seem to matter. I think the ownership is a little too high for what we're getting here. And I actually got to a little bit of Bobby Portis, which I'm not mad about, because let's not forget what the narrative is when Bobby Portis faces the Chicago Bulls. He beats them like it's Nikola Mirotic's face.
Yeah. I was going to say, he must still see his Mirotic's face when he plays the Bulls.
He just sees red, man, and goes nuts. So I don't know what's juicing it. Certainly not that narrative in my model, but I do not mind getting to Bobby Portis today.
He's never a guy I really mind getting to just because of his upside.
Yeah. And if they kick the shit out of him, maybe he grabs a couple extra minutes when they just put Giannis on ice.
Surely.
All righty, folks. One little promo I got to talk to you guys about before we keep it moving. And that is going to be everything. Do you know how great everything is? It's great for you guys, because if you're a fan of the Stokastic products, you can get everything we have, an all-access package, all the sports, NBA, NFL, MMA, PGA, NASCAR, whatever I'm missing, NHL. 10% off the cost of our all-access package. But the best part of this is, it's not for a week or a month. It is in perpetuity. If you don't cancel that subscription, you are getting 10% off of our costs as long as you want to hang around at Stokastic. This is not a deal you should sleep on if you've been around these parts and you like our product. And I think you will when you use it. If you're always here, if you're subscribed to our stuff, this could be a pretty substantial savings month over month. So 10% off, promo code everything, link in the description. Golden State Warriors are 6.5 point favorites in Utah, 235 total. I wanted to bet this so bad when I woke up because the line was like 2.5 or 3 because we had the Q tag on Steph and the Q tag on Draymond. And I was just like, I feel like these guys are playing today. I should pop it. But I know the moment I put the bet in, they would have got ruled out immediately. They are playing today. 30% ownership is coming into someone on the Golden State Warriors on DraftKings, but it is not Steph Curry and it is not Draymond Green. That is Trace Jackson Davis. 10% ownership coming into Curry on DK, 15 on FanDuel, another 15 to Kuminga on FanDuel. How are you handling Trace Jackson Davis here, who got a slightly surprising start in the opener?
Yeah, I'm getting 60% right now, and I kind of feel about this like I did Trey Mann. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel a little queasy. That said, I'm not overly concerned with the ownership because I'm clearly under on a lot of guys that are getting love. It's more just the opportunity cost of me playing 60% Trace Jackson Davis. I don't know. Something you and Adam used to talk about a lot with even if he posts a good score here, what's a good score?
Yeah.
If two high price centers go nuts, it's that type of thing for me. And that's really how I see it. On paper, he looks like a great points per dollar play. Yeah. Is that going to be enough though?
He's a great cash play. I can tell you that much. His value is fantastic. I think he's probably a hair over owned for sure. Given the fact that the Warriors are going to run like a 12-man rotation, you're live to get pinched by everybody here. I think it gets a little scary for stuff like that. But assuming he's still in the starting lineup, I'd be very confident in getting to him.
Yeah, totally. I'm confident in getting to him. Just 60% is whoa.
Oh, that's a big number. That's a big number. I have 15 on FanDuel at 5,100. That even feels a little high. Most I have of anybody here, though, is Jonathan Kuminga. So I got the bucket at 21%, a little bit over the field. Hopefully that goes well. I'm terrified of this Golden State team. I'd rather have 0 and just move on because I don't know what Steve Kerr's doing every night. I don't think he knows until the game starts.
Same.
Then the Utah Jazz are looking incredibly unappealing. 11% ownership to Walker Kessler on DraftKings is the only guy in double-digit ownership across both sites. I think you can make a case that Lauri Markkanen looks totally fine. I don't mind a little bit of Colin Sexton, certainly on FanDuel with the MPE, but I am not seeing a team that I'm trying to get to here against Golden State. Do you like anything from Utah?
I don't. I think Kessler would be the guy at 55 just because of his upside, but I don't like the spot for him and too much opportunity cost. So I really don't see much of Utah here at all.
Yeah, they're not good. Total looks good. Pace of the game should be fine. I'm a pretty big believer in this Golden State defense. Anytime Draymond is healthy and out there, like, you're just not going to have a great. He's so good and so smart at making sure that his own guys are in the right spots. I think this will be pretty tough for Utah. Not a great day for someone like Keontae George trying to crack down that Draymond Green code. So largely a stay away here. I have 5% total of the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, I guess the guy that'd be interesting for me then is Clarkson because, like, he'll get a lot of the non-Draymond minutes.
Yeah. 2 to go. Actual good game tonight at 10. Phoenix Suns, Los Angeles Lakers, round 2 for JJ Redick. For Phoenix, they are full stop unowned. 4% owned Tyus Jones on DraftKings. 3% owned Kevin Durant on FanDuel. It's the only love coming in here. I did get a very tiny amount of Durant and Beal. I think these guys look great as contrarian options, but they don't grade out really well comparing to the rest of the slate.
I'm getting to like a tiny bit of Tyus Jones, and that's it. Again, my ownership's pretty concentrated, so I guess that's what it is. It doesn't feel good, but they don't look like good plays on paper here. So instead of getting like, I don't know, 5% Booker, I'm just getting 5% more Scotty Barnes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I look at it and it's just like, man, if these guys are so low owned, like Durant and Booker are like fantastic tournament plays today, given their current ownership. Because they are just, there's a 55 fantasy point game in both of those dudes very easily here.
Totally. Whenever with those guys. And I will say, like, going off the beaten path in NBA DFS is usually a fool's errand, but it's much more volatile the second day of the season, the second game these teams are playing. We just don't know as much as we will 2 weeks from now. So if there's any chance to go a little bit off the reservation, it's a night like this. So I like the shout out.
Yeah. They're not going to be a priority. You don't have to have a ton of them, but keep an eye on Durant and Booker at least. Lakers side, call it 15% ownership for LeBron across both sites. Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura and D'Angelo Russell are all at about 10 on DraftKings. There is no ownership coming in on FanDuel. AD's 11K there. It's a pretty tough price tag given what else is on the slate. How are you handling LeBron James?
I'm getting to like the field on LeBron. He seems cheap for his floor ceiling combination. He's 8,900. I'm getting about 19% of him. That's where the field is. I'm not getting much AD at all. It's just he's expensive here. Center position is really good. I'm getting LeBron and Reeves and then no one else really. Yeah,
Reeves is the guy that I really like on the Lakers. I'm a lot higher on him than the ownership is. And I'm speaking from a DraftKings perspective here. He's $700 more expensive on FanDuel, so he's not really in play. But on DK, I think he would be a guy that I'm getting a really big stand to. I have his optimal rate a lot higher than what his ownership is showing. So LeBron and Reeves would be pretty big priorities for me on DK. Same thing for LeBron as Reeves. He's $700 cheaper on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. And I still got to 18% of LeBron on FanDuel.
Good to hear.
Sotex knows it. Reeves, hammer play.
Yeah, I like Reeves a lot too. I'm excited you guys are saying that, or you specifically.
Final game of the slate means you need to hit the thumbs up button. Greg and Eric are coming up for Live Before Lock the moment we finish this one out. Pelicans 6-point favorites in Portland. 218 total. Obviously, no DeJounte Murray. Broke his hand in the opener. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. I would bet more on the 6. I haven't seen if he's had surgery or not, though. Surgery means probably like an extra week or so. So 20% ownership to Zion on DraftKings, 13 on FanDuel. A little bit of love coming in to CJ McCollum on FanDuel. Nothing else is happening for the Pelicans across DraftKings, that's for sure. So what are you going to do with Zion making his debut today?
I think the absence of Murray makes Zion look that much better. He's the only Pelican I'm getting. So
same.
I'm a little bit over the field, like 20% Zion. I'm fine with that. I could see this being a really good Zion game. Especially if he's playing point Zion like we've seen in the past. But I don't want to go crazy with it. So I don't love this game, but Zion would be the guy.
I agree. He's the only guy that I have. He's in 15% of my lineups right now. I don't really see a ton of good value on the Pelican side for anybody else. I would probably go to CJ on FanDuel before I went to Brandon Ingram. Ingram's a little bit more expensive. I'd say CJ and Ingram is probably like a coin flip on the DK side, but I just don't think that they look all that good on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know who doesn't look good on DraftKings or FanDuel? That would be Portland, because they don't look good in DraftKings, FanDuel, real life, any life. 5% owned DeAndre Ayton is the high mark on DK. 8% owned Jeremy Grant is the high mark on FanDuel. I really don't have anything here. Cat's out of the bag already on Toumani Camara, assuming he starts again with Scoot coming off the bench. I do think Camara looks like a good value, but I am not all that enamored with Portland.
I'm getting nothing on Portland, at all. 1% of a couple guys. That's it. That Portland-Brooklyn game, whenever it happens, is going to hit like crack.
Oh, man. Although, I mean, it's that. Add Washington to that list. They're extra special bad. Utah in 3 months is probably going to have 5 less dudes on their team than right now.
Good call.
All right, so let's sum it up now. Let's talk about who are some of your favorite plays on DraftKings? Who are the guys that you're expecting to really corner the market on?
The Toronto guys are the first guys that come to mind. Pirtle and Barnes. Daniels too, but the ownership's there. Pirtle and Barnes. I like the bounce back spot for Toronto here. Jalen Suggs we talked about. Brunson. So I'd say those 4 guys in particular.
On the FanDuel side, it looks like OG Anunoby and Josh Hart are going to be guys that I have my eye on as 2x the field type plays. I'm very heavy on Dyson Daniels, but he is also heavily owned. Similar story for Kelly Oubre and Josh Giddey, although I'm a little bit over on Giddey. Scotty Barnes, Darius Garland, and then in if Anunoby and Hart are my S tier GPP plays, my B tier guys would be Tobias Harris, Donovan Mitchell, Clint Capella if he starts on FanDuel, Jonathan Kuminga to a degree. I kind of like this slate. I don't know why, though.
I like it more after talking about it, but that's naturally what happens. And I will say, I'm going to call him out again. I'm not getting to a ton of him, but I kind of wish I was, and that's Evan Mobley. I just think that this is a totally different Mobley than we've seen in the past. Doesn't mean that he's going to be a 10K player going forward, but I think he's going to be a more expensive than 7,800. The same point you made about Daniels, it's clearly not as cut and dry with Mobley. That might not be the case, but I think it's very possible, and people aren't on it.
I mean, I like the shout. He's fantastic. If he just is incrementally getting better, the defense, we don't have to talk about. That's just elite. If he's incrementally getting better offensively from last year, that's a big time jump for him. They don't need a ton out of him offensively, but if they can make him even just be a little bit better than average, that is a massive boon to the Cavs.
I'm with you. I would counter that. The only thing I'll say is I think they do need a ton out of him offensively if they're going to be a serious contender. Yeah.
100%. If they want to take the actual next step, then Evan Mobley has to be a different player offensively. It can't just be incremental. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. 10 games up, 10 games down. I see our boy Eric Lindquist is hiding in the background right now, waiting to get on here, shaking his head. Don't know why. You can hop on if you want. You want to talk? Want to come hang out?
Oh, hello. Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Ahoy, hoy.
this is kind of a fun way to do it. Be able to jump in here. I think Greg's going to be following here very, very shortly, but pretty fun slate. You guys did a great job breaking down the tail end of the show here from what I heard, but excited to have basketball back. My God, what a week.
Man, can't look at you without thinking about Buffalo Bill. Josh, you've seen Silence of the Lambs, no?
Yes, I have.
Well, Eric does a pretty good Buffalo Bill impression.
Damn. I'm a man of
Hope
many
not in real life.
Mickey Mouse, Buffalo Bill, it's all over the place. But yeah, I got the top back down. That's what it is. Night.
Oh man, hey, you said it. I didn't even have to make the joke. That's always fun.
Yep. I know where your brain goes immediately, so I'm going to go to the worst possible joke, and then I'm going to beat you to it.
If it helps, the worst possible joke is a joke that I probably can't say on this stream. My mind goes there.
In fact, if we want to go back, that's a callback joke. These are callback jokes.
It's a callback joke. Greg Ehrenberg in the house, I now see. We should say hi to Greg before we turn this one over to Live Before Lock. And there he is. What's up, Greg?
What is up, guys? What is up? I'm dealing with something else right now.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Not something I could say here, but trying to figure something out. It doesn't impact you guys. Well, actually, I'll message you, Josh.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening. To jump on right now, but not a big deal.
Eric, cue the Buffalo Bill.
You can just not hop on if you don't want to.
No, it's all right.
You're good?
Have a good show, fellas.
Well, you guys enjoy.
On that happy note.
Chat. You have 261 likes. I don't think you did a good enough job for these boys. Hit that thumbs up now and get them started. I'm going to get on out of here. Greg, I'll see you in an hour.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye. Later, everybody.
Bye, Josh.
Later, Matt. Later, Eric.
Oh man, crisis mode here. Let me. There we go. On the right side of the screen. I don't know what to do if I'm not on the right side of the screen.
I thought you were just leaving. Yeah, let's go into playback.
Good call.
Yes, just jumping into playback, making sure that's all set up. And then we will be good to start NBA Live Before Lock. So there we go. All right. Seamless. No issues there whatsoever. It is time for NBA Live Before Lock. If you guys have not done it, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for the next hour. Eric and myself are going to be right here on YouTube, leading you guys up until lock, covering whatever it is that happens in the next hour. We're still at the first week of the NBA season, so maybe not too much shenanigans afoot, Eric, but you never know. It is the National Basketball Association where coaches are dirty, filthy liars. Nonsense is on the injury report all the time, so you never know what might change. And then after Eric and I go through this hour, Josh and myself, we're going to be heading on over to playback, where we're going to be watching some of the shows alongside you guys, and we'll sweat them out. We'll react to any late news that breaks. If anything happens that we have to update our lineups for, we will keep you guys abreast of that over there. If you haven't done it yet, once again, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Eric, what's up, man?
Not much. Want to bring the vibes. Want to bring the good vibes. I hope everything's good. I'm good. The World Series is tonight. Have about 35 people showing up at my house tonight to come watch the Dodger and Yankee game. It's historic. Have some friends that are going to it. I'm very, very jealous of that. But overall, ready to dig into this NBA slate. I hope my friends really like having my laptop on my lap the entire evening, because late swap, it's a part of what we do, and it doesn't just stop for a baseball game at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it's got to be tough when you tell your friend, "Hey, Joe, you can't sit on my lap. The laptop goes there today." It's like, "But that's where I sit." And then you got to explain to them, "Not today." You got to make late swaps. So I'm sure it'll be tough for your friends, but they'll get over it.
I have a mouth still. It'll be okay.
They'll understand. Let's start looking into the slate here. And by the way, Jacob said that you are muted over in playback, Josh.
Now I'm not. How about that? How you like them apples?
All right, there we go. So now everything is set and ready to go over there. So for tonight's slate here, Eric, I just want to know before we get into it, what pieces of news are you waiting for that you think could potentially change your lineup? It's something that we haven't really had to discuss much this year. There's nobody on the injury report that's all that significant. You know, Gary Trent is questionable, but anything else you're keeping your eye on for today?
Yeah, Gary Trent questionable. I think Josh Green being in or out for the Charlotte Atlanta game matters quite a bit, just for what those minutes are for some other pieces. Maybe we get Nick Smith Jr., somebody who's viable. Misich at times, Trey Mann at times. I mean, there's just lots of ways that lineup can roll out and have some value on the Charlotte side. But, it's early. This is the first test. I don't expect many coaches to just pull the rug and have different starting lineups. I mean, Steve Kerr, Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, this is going to be a true center on the other side, but that's a team I'm going to have my eye on for the future, just for they have a million different iterations of what that starting lineup can be when you're playing a 12-man rotation. And Draymond Green, he doesn't want to play the 5, but there's lots of times that you need him to play the 5 in certain matchups. I think it should be pretty straight up today. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what is going to potentially be important here, 76ers starting lineup, when you consider that, once again, we've got this situation where team's shorthanded. There's no Paul George. There's no Joel Embiid. We know of this. But last game, they started KJ Martin, Kenny Martin Jr. And what ended up happening is he started the first half. He actually did decently from a fantasy standpoint in the early going. Then he got into foul trouble, and they've really soured on him. They brought him in for one quick stint in the second quarter, and they were like, nope, we're done with it. Second half, he doesn't start. It's Martin who starts over him. And then Martin I should clarify, because these are both Martins. I did the same thing earlier because Josh and I are on meetings where we go over the NBA projections and we kind of go through all the teams and comb through it. And almost did the exact same thing again, where I said, I think Martin is going to start the second half because Martin started in the first. And then I realized that
both Martins.
It's confusing when there's multiple Martins. And not only that, but there's Caleb and Cody Martin, who are brothers, who are also both playing on the slate. But anyway, I think there's a pretty good chance that Caleb Martin starts today over KJ Martin.
I do too. I jumped on. I talked about that on Lindy's Slings, Likes, and Locks last night. I thought the short move of this entire game was to just be ahead of Caleb Martin props. And I was able to get a little bit down. It moved almost instantly on Underdog, where I ended up playing it. So I didn't post it because, again, it was 2 seconds that it was up to be able to fire it. Let's see what it is currently sitting at now, because it felt like a pretty easy one to latch on to. I think they took him off the board now. So that makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I'm excited about this specific. I mean, Caleb Martin should have been starting to begin with. He's a much better basketball player. KJ Martin's a flat nothing on offense. Defensively, he can do some things from time to time, but Caleb Martin's the better basketball player. He has been forever. And I think it's kind of stupid when NBA coaches like Nick Nurse are basically like, oh yeah, we like the look of him coming off the bench. No, I like the look of my best players playing more minutes than the worst players. And KJ Martin is a worse player. It doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, I'm with you. Caleb Martin should start.
Yeah, so that's what I am expecting to happen, is Caleb Martin starting and KJ Martin heading back to the bench, which, as far as minutes go, I mean, KJ Martin only played 15 minutes last game, so it's not like going to the bench all of a sudden you expect him to play less. He probably still gets somewhere around 15, but it is certainly something that I think is going to be a little bit notable, because it does make, once again, Caleb Martin look better should he be the one who's starting, although he's been priced up a little bit to $4,900.
One second. One second. This is important because I know a lot of people are doing this on a day-to-day basis, and I get more questions about it because I'm in the betting streets as well. You are as well. Obviously, you're doing a great job on X, covering everything with Portfolio EV. I'm in Tails, covering everything. But S&P 1993, I think Trey Mann is severely underprojected if the stat projections are represented in his DFS projection. 14 plus points for Trey Mann is -105 on DK. The site projections have him at 10.3. Now, we are making certain assumptions when we're making DFS projections. We assume who's going to be starting, who's not. I think right now Josh Green is in. If Josh Green is going to be out, we're going to change that stat projection. So everything needs to have a little bit of a grain of salt attached to it. Right now, with Josh Green currently in, waiting for that news, you should have Trey Mann at 10.3 points. Obviously, we would move that up, and it would be more in line with where DK is in the event that Josh Green is ruled out. So don't just blindly take stat projections for what it is or what it isn't. Always have a little bit of context, especially when it comes to injury news.
Yeah, and, once again, these are kind of warm-up slates. We get baby news, little things trickling in. We had the Zion one the other day, although we had an inclination that could happen. It's good. We get warmed up into the season before, shit really starts to get crazy and players getting ruled out left and right and things along those lines. If you guys are watching and you have any questions for us, a couple of ways you can get in touch with us. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a super chat. It is definitely something that I am always looking out for. I answer any questions that you guys have in there. And then also, if you are in Discord and you are a Stokastic sub, which, by the way, Discord comes with access to any of our packages, at me over the course of the show, and I'm also looking out for those. And if you aren't in Discord, I mean, why wouldn't you be? Because it's only $1 to sign up for our NBA core package right now using the promo code TIPOFF24 that's down below in the YouTube description box. So if you haven't gotten in now, this deal is only going to be running until October 29th. And whether you sign up today or tomorrow, it's still you get access through October 29th. It's just $1. So it's something I think you should be taking advantage of. And if you haven't tried Sims before, they're really fun. I think you might like it. And it's only $1. So go check it out. There's no real downside to you other than just the $1. But let's start talking about the slate here, Eric, and beginning with overall for today. I want to know, because there's a handful of different directions you could go, and it's something that people usually tend to ask us. So I want to know, who's your number one priority spend up option for today?
It's still not set in stone, mainly because, there's a chance that we get extra value from Charlotte. There's a chance that something comes to fruition, and I would want to get to Giannis and AD, but right now they're really not showing up in my lineups. I'm playing DraftKings only. I do have people coming over, but I don't think based off of what we just saw last game, we're going to see like 65 spots coming from him routinely. But with no Brandon Miller out there and basically all the offense flowing through him, LaMelo Ball has to be the guy at 9,300. There's no doubt about it. He's got north of a 50 projection. Everybody else in the range, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, I think they're like viable pivots depending on how many lineups you're playing. But LaMelo Ball's the guy, no?
Yeah, and it was something also where we're on the projections meeting before, and we're talking about some of the usage numbers as well as the prop numbers for LaMelo Ball for tonight. And you look at some of the usage for him with you mentioned Brandon Miller being off the court. The numbers were ridiculous last year. Like, you're looking at a guy who had a usage rate in the mid 30% range when he played without Brandon Miller a year ago. And then also the assists are there for LaMelo. The rebounds are there for LaMelo. So, like, even trying to be conservative with his projection, you still get a little bit over 50 fantasy points. And honestly, if you just take some of the rate numbers that LaMelo had last year when Brandon Miller was off the court, you honestly would get to him being projected in the mid 50 fantasy point range. So LaMelo, to me, I agree with you. He's the best overall spend up option on the slate. Really, the only question becomes, as far as LaMelo is concerned, is the ownership. He's going to be very popular on DraftKings, popular on FanDuel as well, but more so on DK, because FanDuel is over $10K. DraftKings is only at the $9,300 price tag. So I'm wondering, relative to the ownership, because I'm with you, also the guy I get the most exposure to, that's a pay-up option. But relative to his ownership, do you think you're going to be overweight at the fields or underweight?
I'm going to be overweight to LaMelo Ball. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to have 48. I'm playing 50 lineups, 48% of them currently.
And now, one other question related to that, and we'll start answering your guys' super chats and questions from Discord. If you had to pick just one player to get off of LaMelo and pivot to, which direction would you go?
Above 9K or below 9K? Can I get 8K
it could
range?
Be in the 8K range as well.
Okay. Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes at 8,800 is just underowned, period. End of story, full stop. It's just too straightforward. I mean, with Emmanuel quickly out there, you're going to see a boost to his assist rate. You're going to see him commanding all of the offense and basically all of the usage. I do have some interest in some other pieces in this first game from Toronto and Philly, but I mean, Davion Mitchell got priced up immediately. Everything kind of looks awful there, but you're bringing a low usage Davion Mitchell who's out there for defensive purposes, and you're just giving Scotty Barnes all the chance and all the land with no RJ Barrett, no Emmanuel Quickly, no Bruce Brown out there to just go nuts. So for me, Scotty Barnes up against this putrid Philadelphia team.
I've got two. One of them is Scotty Barnes, and he was going to be my answer, so I'll give a different one here. But I'm with you. I have Scotty Barnes in more than a third of my lineups with ownership barely projected over 10%. So Scotty Barnes without Emmanuel Quickly, which it still hurts my feelings. I quickly left that game early the other day. But all that aside, Scotty Barnes, he should be benefiting the absence of Quickly. He's not getting the ownership that he should. And honestly, the price is too cheap as well. So Scotty Barnes, he's a good one. Another one for me too, Jalen Brunson at $8,600 in an up-pace matchup against the Indiana Pacers. The Knicks ran the weirdest rotation ever in the first game of the year. Now, the game was a blowout, so that's also going to impact it. But also, Miles McBride was making shots in the first half, and it's really hard to play Miles McBride and Jalen Brunson on the court together. So Thibodeau just played McBride over Jalen Brunson in the first half. That is not something that's going to happen going forward. Both things. Like, we're not going to see games where Miles McBride at halftime of that game was 5 of 5 from the field with 14 points. there just isn't going to be other games where he makes every single one of his shots. And they're like, hey, Jalen Brunson, you stay on the bench. It's Miles McBride time. So I think we see a full allotment of minutes for not just Jalen Brunson, but all of the other Knicks starters, assuming a competitive game. And a full allotment of minutes for Knicks starters could potentially mean close to 40 minutes for guys like Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns, and the rest of the crew. So I like getting to a handful of Knicks players here for those reasons, but Brunson is going to be my preferred option of all of them, and those are the guys I view as the most reasonable pivots to LaMelo Ball. Now, with that in mind, we've got a super chat, and something funny that was kind of making me laugh is I wasn't sure, I'm never exactly sure which questions were answered during the previous show and which ones are for this show. So I asked Jacob which super chats are from this show, which super chats are from the show before, and he was confused. He was like, "There's something about lotion here." He was like, "It doesn't seem to be a question though." And I told him, "Don't worry, I know exactly what it is that's being talked about here." So Phil Senzig wants to know, Eric, lotion play of the night. Who puts it in the basket?
I don't think producer Jacob has the awful photo that got debuted yesterday. Good Lord of Christ.
I'll send it to him. I forgot about that.
That was not me inviting you to do.
I would have forgotten. You're the one who I would have forgotten about it if you didn't bring it up right now. Don't worry. I've got to go through my messages here. So it was one with...
Greg, I'm so busy. Look at me. Message. Oh, I got this DM today, and now this person DM'd me, and they're going to sign up for this, and now I'm going to do this. And look at me doing work. I'm a hard worker. I try hard. I'm Greg. Ho, ho, ho.
All right. If you could, Jacob, this is the ever important new lotion play of the night graphic. So if you could pull it up, which it's impressive that we're able to make Eric look this handsome, but it was done. So we've got that graphic made here, and we'll do the lotion play, and maybe we'll pull the graphic.
I got hit on at Trader Joe's today. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. There it is. Lotion play of the night. Look at the nice comb over there. People don't know because Eric wears hats all the time. That's what his hair looks like underneath the hat. Proof. He wouldn't even take his hat off right there. So there we have it. Lotion play of the night and the new graphic teed up for it. So Eric, who is the lotion play of the night? Who's going to put the ball in the basket?
The lotion goes down the skin. God, it's interesting because I think there's a number of ways to go about it. I'm with you with Jalen Brunson. I mean, Jalen Brunson's definitely going to put the ball in the basket tonight against Indy, up in pace. I got to think the minutes come up a little bit too. Jalen Brunson's a guy that I've kind of all day gone back and forth on just how much I should be playing. He's going to be popular. I think in small field, you're going to see him north of 30, 35%. I think today, though, 8,600, large field tournaments, lots of options at point guard. I would rather play and be overweight to like a quarter of the field on Jalen Brunson than try to get cute with other players in the range. Like, don't really want to go to Donovan Mitchell, although he puts the ball in the basket. Devin Booker, not really playable. Cade Cunningham, okay. But like Jalen Brunson looks awesome if we put him in for 36 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that there's a definite potential for him to go beyond 36 minutes. I feel like I've kind of tipped my hand with a lot of my potential answers here. We've talked about LaMelo. We've talked about Brunson. We've mentioned, Scotty Barnes, probably. Not there has to be specific rules for the dumb, skits and bits we do over the show, but I don't know that Scotty Barnes would fit the lotion play because he's more just like spread out stats across a number of different avenues. But if we're going to another Knicks player, I also like Karl Anthony Towns. I think that Cat is another one who we could see have a pretty solid game. And this goes beyond just the scoring, but also I think his rebound rate is going to be insane until Mitchell Robinson gets back. And that's maybe not even going to happen this season. We know Mitchell Robinson's out at least until the end of 2024. So rebound rate should be really high for Cat. I think the usage rate is going to be really high. As long as he avoids foul trouble, I think the minutes are going to be as high as they've been in a really long time. The last time we saw Karl Anthony Towns coached by Tom Thibodeau, he averaged 37 and 35 and a half minutes per game, which we did not see him play at all after Thibodeau left. So Cat's another one, Eric, that I like as not like a super expensive center today, but one who's like on the lower end of the pay up options.
Yeah, I think that's just fine. I guess let's just kind of round out the Knicks discussion because I think this is a good one. It's a team that I've spent a lot of time on today. What are you doing with Deuce McBride?
I don't have any lineups with him. I don't think
0%. And that's the same thing that I'm doing. I think he's going to pull ownership. I mean, we've got him at what? Like, what is he at right now? Miles McBride. We've got him at 10% ownership. I would flat have 0 in all circumstances.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is, so it's funny. The other slate, I thought I was going to be underweight to the field on McBride because he was projected for like 80% ownership, but then he didn't come in anywhere near that ownership. Not anywhere near, but he ended up being 60% owned. So I had him in 60% of my lineups. He ended up being about 50% owned. So I was intending to be underweight to the field on McBride, ended up being a little bit overweight. And to be honest, even though he crushed that slate, I looked back at it and I was like, I think it was better process to have just not played him, because you look at what he did that game and it's like, he played over Jalen Brunson. They barely shared the court together, and he made all of his shot attempts in the first half with no other peripheral stats. Like, if you told me that he was going to go 5 of 5 from the field and with no other stats in the first half, I'd be like, or if you told me he would have taken 5 shot attempts with no other stats in the first half, I'd say like, oh yeah, that's probably not somebody I want to play at massive ownership. But I don't want to play him today, where there's also better value on the slate. And I just don't think he plays over Jalen Brunson again.
I strongly disagree with you. I mean, he was 3,600 on that slate on a 2-game slate. Like, context matters. We now have infinity games going today. He played 26 minutes, but like, part of playing Miles McBride is that I thought, this is a 10, 15 point game, probably still get some leash in the fourth quarter. He got no leash in the fourth quarter because, they just unloaded the bench. They didn't need to have anybody out there. So Miles McBride, he made a lot of shots. Even if you change that to 5 for 10 and 3 for 5 from 3 or 2 for 5 from 3, he still puts up like 20, 22 at a price tag at 3,600. Now he's 4,100. I know it's against Indy. I know he just looked good, but like, we have to capture recency bias if we can. And this is an opportunity to capture recency bias. So like, working through the Knicks today for me, I landed on Miles McBride and I removed him from the pool.
All right, so let's see what we have for our next question here. A shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 10 YouTube memberships. As always, Chris, we appreciate you. And then Lou Vernon says, Greg, thanks for all your efforts. You're the man. Greg,
that's not true.
All right. I was just reading it again to make sure there was no reference to you, and confirmed you were not referenced at all. Lou, thank you very much for the super chat. It's appreciated. Jake Lindland wants to know thoughts on Zion Williamson on DraftKings tonight, Eric. So we've got Zion Williamson. There's no DeJounte Murray, but with that said, there's no DeJounte Murray last year. So it's kind of just status as per normal from what we've seen out of Zion in the past. We're not going to see him play alongside DeJounte Murray for another couple of months or something like that after Murray broke his hand the other day. What are you doing with Zion on this slate?
He's just a dude to me. I have a lot of Jalen Johnson, who's a little bit cheaper there. That's kind of the guy that I'm going to. You have no Bogdanovich. And then, there's no DeJounte Murray with them anymore. Like, there's an opportunity for Jalen Johnson. I think he's a very, very live guy for most improved player this season. Gary Trent available to play Friday, so we can take that one off the old bingo card. But Zion Williamson, I don't think they're going to ramp up his minutes in like a crazy way. It was a sickness, but they're still going to be cautious with him to some extent. He is a guy who can go out and just lay the hammer down, and there's no DeJounte Murray there, but as he broke his hand, it'll be out like 8 weeks. But I think Zion's just a guy. I think he's about appropriately owned around 18, 19%. If that were to drop to like 12, 13, I'd have a lot more than that. I think he's about where he should be. I think when it's all said and done, I'm going to end up somewhere around that. I think my first run, I had like 22%. He's come up a little bit. I think I'm probably going to end up like 15 to 20, and I'm just fine with it.
I have 17% of Zion Williamson. It's something that I don't know if you remember us having this conversation last year, Eric, but for what we think about Zion Williamson and him getting hurt a lot, but having a guy who potentially has a high ceiling. Do you remember that day where you and I looked at like a months of game logs for Zion Williamson? It was like within 3 or 4 fantasy points in every single one of them. He's a really consistent fantasy performer, which is nice, but he just kind of lacks the ceiling of a lot of the other stars that we see in the league. So Zion, like, fine to be getting to him, but he's not somebody who I value over the likes of LaMelo Ball or Cat or Scotty Barnes or Brunson or something. There's just other high upside guys.
Yep, that's the exact way I feel about him. Yeah. Caleb Martin is starting, so let's get to that.
There we go. So Caleb Martin starting. No real surprise here. Lowry, Maxey, Oubre, Caleb Martin, Andre Drummond. At the top of the show, we had both said that we expected that it was going to be Caleb Martin who was starting over KJ Martin, not to be confused with Cody Martin, who is on the Charlotte Hornets. So 3 Martins that are of interest for us here. But what do you make of this entire team, including Kyle Lowry starting?
Yeah, Kyle Lowry starting as well is kind of interesting to me. It's somebody that they've played alongside Maxey, so it's not a crazy surprise. That's something that can kind of just work between them. The problem is Kyle Lowry's 5K. You're not really going to get to him on DraftKings. I thought if there was a chance that he ends up starting, that that's just kind of is what it is. But Eric Gordon played so bad, bad in that first game that it doesn't actually surprise me. If anybody actually watched it, Eric Gordon was just running at the top of the key, but not even in a productive Steph Curry way. It was jockeying back and forth. And when you have Kelly Oubre in isolation, he's not going to pass it. So really, Eric Gordon was just running wind sprints. He was useless out there.
Yeah, he went, what was it? Was he 0 for 6 from the field? Or 1 for 6 from the field or something like that?
He made a layup.
There you go. Good for him. Good for him. So he was 1 for 6 from the field. Because I was already expecting Caleb Martin to start. The Kyle Lowry piece is a little bit surprising. That was not the direction I thought they were going to be going at point guard. With that said, he played 28 and a half minutes last game, and we saw Eric Gordon play less than Kyle Lowry. Lowry played 24 and a half minutes.
Okay.
He had 28 and a half fantasy
28
points.
and a half. Yep, there you go. Making sure.
But a little bit of blowout where guys lost run at the end of the game. What are you expecting for Kyle Lowry today? And is he somebody that we now want to be getting to for DFS?
Not really. 5K. I mean, Toronto, the matchup is kind of interesting. But if it would take a lot for him at 5K to end up paying off. I think the main reason that they're doing this is that he's playing his former team in Toronto and he'll get a standing O in Toronto. That's probably why they wanted to start him, if we're being honest.
I don't think it should impact the minutes that much. Like we said, he played more minutes than Eric Gordon last game anyway. Any additional, and here's another thing too. I think any additional minutes Kyle Lowry gets is probably going to be offset by a drop in usage playing with the guys in the starting lineup like Kelly Oubre and like Tyrese Maxey, who are higher usage guys. So as far as Kyle Lowry goes, not somebody I'm really interested in, Eric.
Nope, not at all. And again, I think the minutes are kind of unchanged. I really think this is because he's playing in Toronto during pregame or when they're doing the announcements and everybody's coming up. He's going to get a huge standing O from the Toronto crowd. Everybody loves him. Everybody loves DeMar DeRozan. When those guys come back, they're royalty. So it doesn't surprise me that Lowry's starting. That was something that I threw out there as a potential, but I'm not going to change his minutes by more than I'm going to add 1 minute, and I'm not going to get him at 5K.
All right, let's see what else we have for the super chats here. And we have one here from Chris Williams. He says, Chris is too nice, too nice of a person. He left the super chat, Eric, just to make sure you're appreciated. So to match Lou's super chat, he said, thanks, Eric, for the efforts. He did say that I'm the man as well, which kind of means I'm up 2-1 on you on the scoreboard. Who's counting? But either way, Chris Williams, he's left the super chat just to make sure you wouldn't feel left out.
I really hate you. Did you know that?
You hate Chris Williams for leaving you a super chat?
No, I love Chris Williams. Chris Williams is the man. You're very evil and mean-spirited and everything.
I'm reading the super chat. He says to match Lou, because as we remember, Lou left a super chat to thank me for my efforts on the show, made zero reference of you. So Chris is saying to match Lou's super chat, he wants to thank you for your effort. Not your performance, just your effort, your attempts at what you do. And then he said that I'm the man. I'm the man. You try. You do your best, and it's appreciated.
I'm the boy.
Andy Kang left us a super chat. He says, what's up, homies? Been doing lots of traveling. Missed a lot of DFS the past few months. Just popping in to say what's up and good luck. He said he did hit on 9K and 1K bets in same-game parlays, so that was nice. And then he says, peace. Andy, shout out. I mean, that's a 10K night in same-game parlays. That'll always play. So congrats to Andy there. And then Jeff Williams left us a super chat, and he is asking us, here's his lineup, Ball, Daniels, Cody Martin, Evan Mobley, Anthony Davis, Trey Mann, Okongwu, DeAndre Hunter. He says he's playing the 888, and then it says thoughts on ROI. Would you mind, Jacob, can you pull up the single lineup sims, and we could plug this lineup in? We can, there we go. All right.
Look at that.
So let's plug this lineup in. And what we have for the lineup.
We'll see Mobley
bigger in here.
Most contrarian piece. Again, Trey Young, Trey.
StreamYard's being weird. Won't let me expand the screen. There we go.
There it is. Are you putting it in yourself right now?
All right. Jacob's putting it in.
Oh, I thought you were potentially.
All right, so it's
Dyson Daniels,
LaMelo
Cody
Ball,
Martin.
Dyson Daniels, Cody Martin.
That's the Charlotte version of the Martins.
Yeah.
Followed by the Mobley.
So Evan Mobley.
Yep. He is not owned today.
There we go. Evan Mobley. Yeah, put him in a power forward. And then we've got Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm.
All right, AD. Then we've got Trey Mann. Okay. Then we've got Onyeka Okongwu. All right.
Woo!
And then finally, DeAndre Hunter. Lots of Hawks in this lineup.
It's a lot of Hawks. It's 3 of them, in fact.
Although with that said, it is a game stack. You've got
a full game stack. Oh,
yeah,
good. You can count.
I don't know if that was done intentionally, Jeff, but hopefully get overtime there. This lineup did not rate out very well. Negative 16.5% sim ROI. I don't like Okongwu for today. Do you like Okongwu, Eric?
I sure don't. Okongwu ended up closing over Clint Capella. I think that's kind of what he's noticing the most is that Okongwu ended up having a really, really nice game. But I think this is kind of what I'm talking about. Capture recency bias when you can. Like Deuce McBride, if he beats me today, I know he's 4,100, and if he puts up 20 points, goes 8 for 10 shooting, 4 for 5 from 3, does whatever, sweet, whatever. There's so many better plays than Deuce McBride who are guaranteed more minutes and more, maybe not more usage, but Okongwu is really thin purely because he's 5,400. For him to pay off that tag, you need Clint Capella foul trouble. You need him to close yet again. You need somebody else to potentially, Okongwu went 11 for 12 from the field and 6 for 6 from the free throw line. He almost pulled a Christian Laettner against Kentucky. Like, this is not the kind of play that you really want at 5,400, where he just shot 100%, his price moves, and now if he does anything worse than he did last game and gets any less minutes, you're looking at a guy who not only doesn't meet value, but just crushes your lineup.
Yeah, so as far as, let's see, I've got a couple of Okongwu lineups. If I was just playing one lineup in a high stakes contest there, it wouldn't be Okongwu who I go to. So of the players in this lineup who I don't really like, Eric, it's 2. It's Evan Mobley and Onyeka Okongwu. I don't really have an issue with anybody else.
Yeah, and again, this is where the Mobley thing too. I mean, Mobley just had a pretty ridiculous game himself. Watched a lot of that Toronto game. He looked awesome. Put up a 50 spot in 27 minutes. We expect him to play more than 27 minutes, but do we expect 5 stocks? No, we do not. The prop market suggests that. Do we expect 9 rebounds? No, the prop market alongside Jared Allen has him around 7.5. And then he goes 9 for 14 from the field. He played Toronto and now he plays Detroit, which again, Detroit, I think they're better than most people do. I think Detroit added some like serviceable pieces. I know Josh talked a little bit about it at the tail end of a show too, where, he was talking about Cade Cunningham. He was doing that on the playback show with you actually a couple nights ago when they were playing. I am kind of feeling that same sentiment where Tobias Harris is an improvement over anything that they've played at the 4 in recent years. I mean, they've really revamped their team. Fontecchio was the guy who was playing minutes from last year. That's absurd. And now you have Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris, who I find to be much better than him. Does that matter come playoff time? Probably not. Should Cleveland still murder in this game? Probably should. But Evan Mobley's just thin relative to other plays.
Yeah, so let's help Jeff here and rebuild the lineup a little bit using the single lineups. And by the way, if you sign up with that $1 promo link down below in the YouTube box, you get access to this tool. It's fun to play with. So let's take Mobley out and Okongwu. We'll keep everything else the same. Let's just take these 2 guys out.
Scotty Barnes, put him in.
Okay, so let's go Barnes. So we're going Scotty Barnes instead at power forward. Go, Jacob, if you wouldn't mind, can you move DeAndre Hunter to the forward spot instead of utility?
That's what I was going to say. And then I'm looking at 4,500 to see.
And then just whoever projects best with the 4,500.
Trace Jackson Davis by a mile. Trace
Jackson
Davis.
Yeah. So plug in Trace Jackson Davis at the utility spot there.
And now
let's run it. I will guarantee, the old Charles Barkley guarantee, this comes up with a better sim ROI. Great lineup. That's all it is. We just have to change 2 players out.
I did my job well today. Go me.
There we go. There we go. That's where the super
Greg is still more handsome and loved and adored and all of those things, but I did my job well today.
All right. So now we got the 57.9% Samar. So just like little adjustments that we made there, Jeff. And you are good to go there, I think. Just, a couple of those changes. And I think it's a much better looking lineup. Sean Jeezy left his super chat. He says, happy NBA season, gents. Favorite cheap center roulette option if we had to pick? He is asking us Huff, Misi, Jalen Smith, Mogbo, or a different one. He says all fragile, but he's talking for a very large field GPP. Are there any crazy centers that you're willing to take a chance on tonight?
No, the best one's Trace Jackson Davis. So they played a 12-man rotation.
Well, he's saying Contrarian.
Oh, got to be Contrarian. Okay. I have one guy that I'm a little bit surprised to see is pulling absolutely no ownership. And I'm not sure if you can get on board with this with me or not. I don't even know if I want to throw this name out. I don't even know if I want to.
I mean, just do it. I can only react until I hear the name. If you keep it close to the vest, we're never going to be able to make fun of you for it.
Nah, I'm going to opt. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm not going to do it.
Okay. I have one that I'm going to answer. Do you want me to give mine?
Yeah, you give yours first.
Okay. Yeah. So once again, it's just in the nature of Sean's question. This is somebody who is at least in my player pool. I've got a couple lineups with him, but certainly not a big part of it. Mo Wagner, because he's somebody who's cheap, is unowned, but actually we see have upside from time to time. And once again, if you guys are watching the show and you're just playing, well, honestly, if you're playing not just 1, 2, 3 lineups, even if you're playing 20 lineups, Mo Wagner wouldn't be a consideration. But whether it be Wendell Carter Jr. struggles, Wendell Carter Jr. gets in foul trouble, we've seen times that Mo Wagner ends up playing some extended minutes. It doesn't happen frequently, but when he does, he's a good fantasy producer and he could have a little bit of an upside. So Mo Wagner is going to be my answer to Sean's question.
I'm just kind of fighting the urge to not say it because it's so bad. But what do we think about beef stew 4,100?
I don't think I have any. Yeah, I don't have any lineups with them. So I mean, he's similar to Wagner.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at. Cleveland's front court is so good, Mobley and Allen specifically, and Duren is 7,100. I'm not going to play Duren at 7,100 here against Cleveland's front court, but if this game gets out of hand or if there's anything that goes wrong here, they did bring in Paul Reed, but he didn't see the floor. So I think Beef Stew is just like your backup center. There's a lot of foul concerns and like it's thin, it's extremely thin, but I've kind of worked through it a number of ways. And I think that if this game does get out of hand, Beef Stew at least has a chance to close. And he's been known to go out and chuck from time to time. Now, the difference is that Detroit, in previous years of his tenure, like he was one of the main guys. Now with Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, there's not a lot of usage there. But if you get them all off the floor, I mean, this is a double-digit spread. If we see Cleveland up 18 in the fourth, there's a chance where I think Beef Stew at 4,100 could find yourself, you could find a couple of buckets there, but it is so thin. He's in 5% of my lineups.
We've got a super chat as well for Malukar. He wants to know for FanDuel, Young, Smart, Bridges, Daniels, Johnson, Hart, Barnes, Anunoby, and Jakob Poeltl. If you wouldn't mind, Jacob, just throw that lineup into the single lineup sim while Eric and this is a FanDuel lineup, not DraftKings. So cool. You've already got it up there. So yeah, just clear those players or is that, look at that. He's already starting to plug some of those guys in. So we'll see shortly what this ends up looking like.
You don't understand. Producer Jacob's favorite sport is basketball by a landslide. The guy is a ninja. He knows who everybody plays for. We talk hoops. Like during MLB season, it's basically just like, hey, what's going on in your life? And then I record Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks, and then we get the hell out of there as fast as possible. In the NBA, we sit around and talk ball for like an hour, hour and a half all the time. Look at that. That is a solid.
Looks like a great lineup there, Malukar. So not going to tell you to change anything. I think you're good to roll there. We did get a super chat from Pierre. He wants to know our favorite plays at each position on FanDuel. And then he says, if tracking World Series dong picks, I have lineups I could go over to give for the best players at each position on FanDuel. I don't know if you have that, Eric, but I don't have dong picks. So If
I
you
have
want,
0
I can
home
do
runs
top
that I have
FanDuel
bet.
picks, and you can do home run picks because I don't have anything for home run picks.
Yeah, I don't have a home run pick. I do have a lock though. I have my favorite play of the World Series that I'll give you after this. Let's do FanDuel first.
All right.
I'm only playing DK for what it's worth.
Starting at point guard, and this is a favorite plays at each position on FanDuel. Point guard for me, it is so difficult to get away from Dyson Daniels.
Dyson Daniels / Jalen Brunson.
Okay, then over at shooting guard, where I went with Dyson Daniels at point guard. At shooting guard, I'm going to say Josh Giddey, who, once again, he just looks like a different play on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. The same case a couple of days ago, but Josh Giddey at shooting guard.
Yeah, Dyson Daniels and the guy who shall not be named. Yes.
At small forward, that is going to be Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre by a lot.
At power forward, once again, our guy Scotty Barnes.
Jalen Johnson for me.
Ooh. And then at center, I'm going to go Andre Drummond.
And Jakob Poeltl for me at center.
Yeah, Andre Drummond priced down to $6,900 on FanDuel.
Nice.
Very nice. Yeah, that price is obviously going to come plummeting down once Joel Embiid returns and whatnot. But at least as of right now, Andre Drummond, if it wasn't for foul trouble last game and the score of the game, I think there was potential for a pretty big game there. So I'm going to go Andre Drummond as my option there at center. And that has us caught up on Super Chats. Let's see what we have from Discord. And here we go.
My baseball play.
Okay, here we go.
I want to look it up here, what the live odds are, but Aton, yeah. Let me pull up this exact number here because I'm very heavy on this. Jack Flaherty, plus 120. He's now plus 112, under 4.5 strikeouts. If you watched his last outing, the guy legitimately had 2 miles per hour off of his fastball, and they said that it wasn't structural. And all week, I am looking at press reports, looking at as many blurbs as I can, trying to see as many interviews, because I'm like, I might make a generational wealth play on the under of his outs and the under of his strikeouts, depending on what the numbers are. The outs aren't very nice and generous, but the strikeouts, 4.5, he had 0. He lost all velocity on his fastball. He was topping out at 91. Now, breaking pitches against the Yankees sounds decent, but actually the Mets strike out more against right-handed pitching over the course of the season and over the course of the last month sample size than what the Yankees do. I'm willing to roll with it because with this long gap, every bullpen is fresh, and then you're going to get a day off, and then the bullpen's going to be fresh again. Expect bullpens to maybe come in more if a Jack Flaherty does not have his top 8 stuff. I feel like this is one of those that's pretty efficient, but you have so much skewed towards him potentially getting pulled in the 3rd or 4th inning that I just have to fire under 4.5 at plus 112 on FanDuel right now.
I'm going to agree with Eric. The only bet that I have for the World Series is I bet the Yankees before the playoffs started, which was really just because a lot of projection models were high on not just the Yankees, but other teams in the American League as well, because the Detroit Tigers rated out as such a poor team and they were such a public team that every other team in the American League had value. So I ended up betting on the Yankees. So I got the Yankees. I think it's plus 500 to win the World Series. That's my rooting interest for the World Series, but doesn't really do any good.
I'm hoping they go completely nuts against the Dodgers. So can't wait to go hang out with 34 Dodger fans in my house. This will go really, really well for me as I'm freaking out at Jack Flaherty. That'll be good.
We've got another super chat. This one is from Sean, and we'll get to the Discord questions. He says, "Hey, gents, best forwards on DK outside of Scotty Barnes." Yeah, which forwards do you have the most exposure to who are not Scotty Barnes, Eric?
We'll pull that up here right now. Jalen Johnson, I know, is on the top of that list. All right. So just power forward, you said?
No, forward. So this could be power forwards. It could be small forwards, either.
Yeah, okay. So there's DeAndre Hunter. I think at 4,700, we all expect him to play more minutes. I think they're so secure. I mean, he's been a guy who's played a lot of minutes whenever healthy for Atlanta, as is. At the tail end of last year was playing a ton of minutes. I think he's really, really good. I think Kelly Oubre, small forward eligibility on DK still makes him pretty relevant. So there's that. I think Grady Dick at 5K is really, really interesting as well, although the Sims absolutely hate him. So I will say Grady Dick is probably the one guy that if you're looking to get off of in this early game and kind of wait for some news to drop, maybe we get something else from Charlotte, I'd be okay being a little bit lower on Grady Dick. But earlier in the day, he was a guy showing up tons in my lineups. I'm going to rerun some stuff here from what we talked about. Yes, I love Scotty Barnes for tournaments. Yes, I love Jalen Johnson for tournaments. And then one guy that we haven't talked about whatsoever that I am way higher on than our projections is Santi Aldama. Santi Aldama had a phenomenal basketball game last time out, but with no Jaren Jackson Jr. out there, there's such a path to anybody to have minutes. And it's not just because he was knocking down shots. I mean, Santi Aldama is going to be so much more efficient with sharing a floor. Like John Morant is the other guy that's going to be playing alongside him. Desmond Bane. These are guys who are going to give him open looks beyond open looks beyond open looks, because defenses need to key in on those two. And Desmond Bane's minutes, sub 30, kind of weird to me, but like that makes it all the more appealing to potentially get 32, 33 from Santi Aldama. I am so high. He was the lock last night on Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. He was at 8.5 points. That got bet up to 10.5. It is sitting pretty to be on that ticket right now, but Santi Aldama at 5,100, one of my biggest stands for DFS today.
So for myself, I'm going to go with a couple of guys who are not pulling a lot of ownership at forward, who I'm well overweight to the field to. One's a power forward, one is small forward and power forward. One of them is the aforementioned Jalen Johnson that you and I have brought his name up a little bit over the course of the show. I think that he's in line for a big breakout season with DeJounte Murray gone there. So I like Jalen Johnson at $7,700. Another one too, Josh Hart at $5,700. He was really popular the first slate of the season. He had an absolute terrible fantasy game. But the main reason he had a terrible fantasy game is because everybody on the Knicks had a terrible fantasy game. They got destroyed by the Boston Celtics. You had Josh Hart play like 25 minutes. Josh Hart hasn't only played 25 minutes in forever under Tom Thibodeau. So I think we see, just like before, we're talking about Jalen Brunson, the Knicks minutes should bounce back. They should be really significant. And I think that somebody really stands to benefit in Josh Hart. So there's a couple of forward options for you, Sean. Neither of them are going to be all that popular. We've got a couple questions. One was from Hey, I'm Drew. Another one is for Connor here. He wants to know, who are the DK cash game locks, Eric? And he says Cat or Trace Jackson Davis at center. For cash, I think you want to be playing Trace Jackson Davis at center. Would you agree with that?
He's the highest owned center. Yeah, you should be playing Trace Jackson Davis.
Other players that I think are, bucket of cash.
Dyson Daniels,
Trace Jackson Davis, LaMelo Ball, Dyson Daniels, Trey Mann. Anybody you'd add to that?
LaMelo Ball. You said Ball, right?
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter's a cash
Ball,
game
Trace
lock.
Jackson Davis, Trey Mann, Dyson Daniels.
DeAndre Hunter's a cash game lock too.
Okay.
I'd add Hunter to
I'd
it.
say strong consideration. I wouldn't call him a lock. If you didn't have him, I wouldn't say it's the end of the world, but certainly a strong option. I put Caleb Martin in the same boat as well. Caleb Martin, really strong cash game option, but I don't think you necessarily need him. But I call him a strong option for cash games.
If you were to like last man in, I mean, they're $200 away, but like Martin or Hunter for cash. Because I think Martin, you just want to get 2 more. Yeah, okay, good. Then we're on the same page there.
Okay. Next question in Discord, and then we'll do the nuke of the night, Eric. But Einstein wants to know, any issue playing Trey Mann and LaMelo Ball together in a lineup? Also, how many Hornets would you play in a lineup together? I have no issue with LaMelo and Trey Mann in the same lineup. Trey Mann he's $4,300, and you got Brandon Miller out. There's certainly opportunity for LaMelo to score 50 fantasy points and Mann to put up like 25 or whatever.
Agreed.
Yeah, no issue with that at all. Most Hornets I'm willing to play in a lineup 3.
Yeah, I don't want to play 4 unless you're just straight up game stacking. And I think this is an appealing game stack for what it's worth. Like, we don't ever talk about it in NBA because it's, just kind of ridiculous. But like, if this game goes to overtime or something and you had 7 pieces of it, I wouldn't completely hate it the way that because we get super chats from time to time, people saying, oh, I'm game stacking this or I'm game stacking that. And I'm like, why? This is NBA. But like, because of the price points being cheap on like the Hunter and then a Caleb Martin or whichever Martin it is that's on Charlotte off the top of my head, like you have an opportunity to put this game together with some spend ups, LaMelo Ball and Trae Young, and some cheapies. And there's not a ton of mid range, and that kind of makes it easier to do.
All right. With that in mind, let's do it, Eric. Nuke of the night. We're going to go.
That was such a quick.
In StreamYard, we could hear everything too. It's really a nice, because when we do it, nobody would know this other than us. When we do the show over Zoom, we could see the graphic, but we can't hear the animations play in the same way. So I like it. I like that quite a bit. And now, Eric, hit us with it. Who is your nuke of the night?
You know what? This is so disturbing. This is absolutely disturbing. But I made him nuke of the night. The other night he got in foul trouble. I'm going to make him nuke of the night again. We have some cheapies. Trace Jackson Davis is somebody that, ended up in the starting lineup, feels more secure now. We have some other decent enough center plays, but Andre Drummond is 6,800 on DraftKings.com with a boom percentage right around 37-38%. That's basically saying the number of times that he's going to put up like a 75th percentile outcome. It's like 5x plus 10 fantasy points is kind of the way that we look at what a boom score is. If Andre Drummond keeps his damn dirty hands to himself, he's going to grab 20 boards in a basketball game sooner rather than later without Joel Embiid on the floor. And you're getting Caleb Martin out there who will be around the perimeter a little bit more than a KJ Martin as well. I feel really good about Andre Drummond tonight in a way that I probably shouldn't, but it's Toronto on the other side. It's another true center in Jakob Poeltl. And Yabusele, we talked about a lot last time. His price is now up from $3K to $4,100. I think it's okay getting to a little bit of him here today, but there's no question that Andre Drummond, he is in the same type of situation now. And I think a little bit better because I thought Milwaukee was going to blow the doors off of Philly. They did. Still was a nuke of the night because of how I projected him, but I'm going to project him much higher than us yet again here. Andre Drummond, second time around, he gets it done. Nuke of the night.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, we talked about him a bunch over the course of the show, but he's not all that popular. He's the player I'm most overweight to. It's Scotty Barnes for me at $8,800 on DraftKings. Also, when we're talking about FanDuel, we're talking about our most roster players at each position. Scotty Barnes came up over there as well. For a guy who's barely over 10% owned, he's all the opportunity in the world tonight, especially when you consider there's no Emmanuel Quickly. That Toronto roster, it's terrible. And they're going up against the 76ers team. Later on in the year, going up against the 76ers is going to be a very difficult matchup. It is not when Joel Embiid and Paul George are both out. So once again, going to bring up Scotty Barnes here. He is the nuke of the night as well. Let's see what we have for our next question. This one is coming to us from Enzo. Enzo in the Discord wants to know, best small forward play on DraftKings. For myself, I have the most exposure to Cody Martin at small forward.
We'll find out. I have the most exposure to, I have a lot of Cody Martin too. Cody Martin isn't all that popular for what it's worth. He's like, what, 14%? Like, I think Cody Martin's an awesome play, especially if you're going to be getting to a lot of that game like Craig and I are. Sounds like he's getting to a lot of ball. I'm getting to a lot of ball. Trae Young is a really good play. We have other value that just kind of exists there. I'm a big Jalen Johnson stan. I think we have a really good chance to get some Cody Martin in our lineups at a cheap cost, and he's not very popular.
Yeah, so that is Cody Martin. Answer also crazy positionality. I know this was a small forward, but like point guard, small forward, there's so many lineup spots he fits in, and he's fairly cheap. The team's shorthanded. Cody Martin. We've got a question here. M Grizzly wants to know, is there anybody that I am boosting tonight on DK? No, there's no injury news we're waiting on. We got the starting lineup. Not that we weren't going to be getting it because it's a game that locks first in Philly-Toronto, but nobody that I'm going out of my way to change. We'll be getting there once players are on the injury report, and Eric and I debate about whether we want to take the first game out to give us more flexibility, but there's nothing I feel like I need to avoid or like backload my lineups with tonight.
Yeah, Josh Green is in, right? We got that news already. Yeah. So life has kind of figured itself out. Like we're not going to have to make any kind of rash decisions later on. Like you still want to be late swapping. You still want to go to the late swap tool and kind of like always update your lineups for how they're doing. And then kind of like handpick a couple out where, I'll do it by hand where, if something's doing really, really well, I'll embrace the chalk. If something's not, I'll probably get very, very different in some of the small field stuff. But yeah, I think we're ready to rock tonight.
Yeah. I think people in chat are missing that Brandon Miller's out for Charlotte. Like, that's the reason we want to be playing Cody Martin is because Brandon Miller is out.
Correct. Yeah, I think Cody Martin would not be a play if it weren't for Brandon Miller being out, but that's like 33, 34 minutes we're replacing tonight.
Yeah, and usage. That has been missed, I think, in chat. Like, my expectation, I don't think we've had the official starting lineup, but unless I missed it, I think the starting lineup for Charlotte, LaMelo Ball, Josh Green, Miles Bridges, Cody Martin, Nick Richards.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, did it come out yet?
No, it hasn't. But I'm saying that is what I have for the starting lineup as well. It'd be surprising not to have it be that.
All right, so let's go ahead.
I think Martin is still a good play with Josh Green playing. So Rinpack just DM'd me, and I'm happy to throw it out there because, again, Rinpack, one of the best DFS players, period, one of my best friends. yeah, I still think he's a good play because he's 3,700. Like, what else in that price point? Like, as I work through the minutes,
the Josh Green part is totally irrelevant to this. People, it's not the Josh Green being in or out is not what we liked Martin. It's because Brandon Miller's out.
That's exactly it. That's what I was getting at, is that he's still going to be starting. If Cody Martin doesn't start, don't play him. If he does start, play him. That's what it comes down to.
All right. We've got questions coming in on Discord. One here is from Philophonic, says top PRA plays on the slate for DK Sportsbook. I can pull up Odd Shopper and I'll see what it is that stands out right now, because I don't know what you don't know how the lines move as we get closer to lock here and whatnot. So I'll pull up Odd Shopper and I'll find the top PRA play in our projections, and it has to be for DraftKings, he said, as well. Let's see. DK. Doesn't look like there's any at the top of the board at the moment. Does it have to be a PRA? Oh, here's one. No, never mind. That's. I'll tell you, here's the best DraftKings bet on the board right now that we have in Odd Shopper. It's Jalen Suggs under 3.5 assists at plus 14 over on DraftKings. That's the best bet that's available on DraftKings in the portfolio EV tools. Kareem wants to know, how much Dyson Daniels are we getting to on DraftKings? A lot. He's in like 2/3 of my lineups.
Yep, he's in just about that for me too.
Yeah. I have him in 72% of lineups.
Yep, that sounds about like what I have too.
Mike wants to know, do we like LeBron James on FanDuel for single entry? I've been light on FanDuel, not on FanDuel, on a LeBron James so far this year across FanDuel and DraftKings. Like, if you add him in, I'm not going to tell you to take him out or anything like that. I just prefer other spend up options.
It's the same way that I feel. I find him hard to get to. I just strongly prefer so much other stuff. Like, this is his 22nd NBA season. He's 8,900 on DK. What's his price on FanDuel?
The price 96, I think.
They're playing Phoenix. It's not like Phoenix is the easiest matchup in the land. Like, I'm not a big fan of making that a thing. Like, I can't really do it. Like, I get why you're doing it. It's LeBron James, and I think the positionality helps out a little bit too, but I would much rather do a lot of other things than play LeBron tonight.
All right. I'll try to speed it. We just got a bunch of questions that came in, so try to get through these a little bit quicker here. Eric G, last man in. He's got $9,300 on DK. He already has Barnes and Şengün as a pay-up option. So let's see, $9,300 LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, he has Barnes and Şengün as a pay-up. Last minute 93. Yeah, that's LaMelo Ball. Easy. Open and shut case. Next question here is from Stokes in Discord. Wants to know, who is the best pay-up option for DK, 8K or above? LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball.
Next question is from JEW. Favorite small forwards and overall contrarian guy for a DK single entry. Yeah, favorite small forwards for me are Cody Martin and Josh Hart. My overall favorite contrarian play on the slate is Scotty Barnes.
Chris Boucher.
Ooh, okay. Next question is from Lucky. Wants to know, how many uniques do I do in The Sims? I don't do any. So if you feel like you need to make your lineups way different from each other, you could use the uniques. Like, I'm cool with just loading, like, for example, Dyson Daniels. I wouldn't want to build lineups that don't have Dyson Daniels just for the sake of building lineups that don't have Dyson Daniels. He's my most rostered player. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at it and be like, oh my God, I have over 70% of Dyson Daniels. I have to move that to like 30% or something in case he doesn't have a good game. Uniques are good if you want to diversify your lineups. You really want to be risk adverse. I am not. I am somebody who takes on very many risks. I'm very risk tolerant. So I'm good with having my lineups sometimes be similar if it's a slate where I find a lot of value guys that want to jam into lineups. So I don't use them, but if you wanted to diversify your lineups, set it to 3 or 4 uniques.
Love.
And next question, it is from M. Grizzly. Wants to know, Sims are getting me to a lot of Dyson Daniels. He's got him in 93 out of 100 lineups. He wants to know, is that reasonable or should he lower it? Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Dyson Daniels is the best overall play on the slate to me.
He is. I have him in 70%, and I'm just fine. Greg has him in 72%. I think he's just fine with it too.
Matt Martin wants to know, who are the 3 best cheap options for tonight's slate? All right. So cheap guys, we'll say
Cody
anybody
Martin.
sub 5K. Dyson Daniels, Trey Mann, Jalen Suggs.
No, yeah, those all sound really good.
Yeah. Those 3 for me.
And then I'll throw, again, for tournaments.
Like Trace Jackson Davis, also another one who I think is pretty solid for this slate. Cody Martin, we talked about before. Caleb Martin as well. But the 3 I overall have the most exposure to: Dyson Daniels, Trey Mann, Jalen Suggs. Krebsy wants to know is Alonzo Ball, or sorry, not Alonzo. I assume he means LaMelo Ball. I accidentally said Alonzo, but he says LaMelo Ball too risky for FanDuel and no, not at all. LaMelo's a great option.
LaMelo's a fantastic option tonight.
Woo's God says, how do you like Boucher? They might need the offense. Eric just mentioned liking Boucher as a contrarian option.
I have him in 16% of lineups.
All right. I have, you know what? I have 15% of Boucher. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with it. JEW says pick 3 and pick 4. Okay.
How about pick 6?
Pick 3 and pick 4. Okay. So Ball, Brunson, Mansa. Okay. So I see. I think he wants a pay up option. And actually, I don't really understand this. All right. So Ball, Brunson, Mann, Suggs, Daniels for DK. Pick 3 and pick 4 of. I mean, you listed 4 players and asked to pick 4.
I don't know what to tell you. That sounds confusing. Nobody said there'd be math.
All right. Sniffs wants to know, how do we feel about Jakob Poeltl? I think Jakob Poeltl is a really strong center option. He looks a little bit better on FanDuel and DraftKings, but really good option on both slates.
Yeah, he was really popping in the Sims on DK. I had to tone it down a little bit. I have around 30%, and I'm fine with that.
Shout out to Guitar Z-Man, who gifted us out 5 YouTube memberships. So Guitar Z-Man, thank you very much. You guys, don't forget, in just a couple of minutes here, it's going to be Josh and myself over on Playback watching the games alongside with you guys. If you want to come, hop in, watch us sweat out the games. And then, Eric G, is 5 from the Atlanta-Charlotte game too many? No, that is no problem at all, Eric. There's a lot of players that look good from that game.
No problem at all.
Then we've got Stokes wants to know, how much Giannis are we getting to? I don't think I have as much Giannis today. 15%. I mean, I guess he's really contrarian, so I have more than the field. But I really loaded up on him the other day, and 15% for me tonight. Yourself?
We don't have the same value that we did before. It feels not thinner because I think there's some security in certain pieces of it. But the amount of Giannis I'm going to get to will be dictated by the first 15, 20 minutes of Charlotte. That game will matter a lot to how much Giannis I get to. If that makes
CG
sense.
wants the link to Playback. Yeah, I'll drop that. When we start Playback, I'll drop it into Discord. And then JEW is asking us, it was, what priority? There we go. Okay, I was confused. Because when we said pick 3, pick 4, I thought you just want us to pick 4 of the players, and you'd listed 4. All right. So order of priority: Ball, Brunson, Mann. So, okay. So order of priority for these guys that you listed, I'm going to say Mann 1, Daniels 1, Mann 2, Suggs 3, LaMelo 4, Brunson 5. They're all really good options, though.
Sounds good.
And was there one other question that came in? It was another question about Jakob Poeltl, but we touched on Jakob Poeltl. Eric, just like a minute left to go here. Any final thoughts on the slate before we head into a lock here?
Yeah, something I've thought about a lot the last, day or so. So Matt Belman and I were on a show, and he was talking about how you can set it and forget it. I'm always thinking about late swap. I'm always adjusting to new information. And sometimes that new information is just how your lineups are doing, how the chalk is doing. Pay very close attention to this first hour because we have a ton of chalk that is about to go live. And the way that you react to it is simply saying, all right, there's some chalk that I do like. So the amount of Trace Jackson Davis I have is going to change drastically between now and lock. The amount of other pieces that I have from the late window that are contrarian pieces is going to change a lot based on these early games. Always think about late swap in the context of how can I improve my chances of finishing first? Because in the end of the day, we are trying to finish first. The Sims will help you with it. The late swap tool will help you with it. But also understand that if you need to bypass somebody, you sometimes need to do uncomfortable shit, like getting rid of a guy like Trace Jackson Davis, who I think is an awesome play, but might not be in my lineups as much based on how the lineups do early on in the night.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for Eric and I. If you've not done yet, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't go anywhere Well, I mean, go just over to Playback. I dropped the link in the YouTube chat there. I'll drop it into Discord. I tried to just type it out really quick because I have Discord open on my phone, and I was just like, www.playback.com/Stokastic. But yeah, if you guys just go to playback.com and then just look up the oddshopper/Stokastic channel, you will find it in there. But I'll drop the link into chat there. So come join Josh and I as we go sweat the games. Peace out, guys.